I am Nicole Slayman, a project manager with Braun Enertech, and today I'm gathered with Jennifer Adams, a principal consultant, and Gabriella Fitzgerald, a group manager from our Austin and Houston, Texas offices to discuss sustainability.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining me today. Today our topic is sustainability, and we're getting lots of questions from our clients like, what is it? What is a sustainable project? And am I required to do X, Y, and Z for my facility? So starting off with an introduction to sustainability, Gabby, could you provide some insight on what is sustainability, especially as it relates to manufacturing and businesses?
Yeah, I think that the easiest to interpret and most commonly heard definition of sustainability is that it's a balance of people, planet, and profit. And it's really about trying to find solutions on how they can complement one another instead of competing with each other. So it doesn't have to be about the profit of the business or, you know, being environmentally sustainable or good for the planet.
Thank you for giving me a quick snapshot of how we work with sustainability. Could you dive in a little deeper into what necessarily drives companies towards sustainability?
Sure. So, sustainability in business and manufacturing is really driven by a combination of environmental, social, economic factors. And we're seeing that federal, state, and local governments are implementing regulations and standards to promote sustainability. And that is that is one of the drivers that influences companies to adopt sustainable practices so they can comply with those regulations, avoid fines, and demonstrate corporate responsibility. Some of the biggest drivers that we've seen in the last few years, one is the EPA 5-year strategic plan set from 2022 to 2026. That's the big focus there is tackling climate change, along with 5 other programmatic goals around environmental and sustainability. What's neat about this plan is the EPA is really looking at a whole of government approach, partnering with the Department of Energy, Department of Justice, and pulling in industries to also kind of create a whole of industry approach. The goal here, again, aligned with climate goals, is a net zero carbon by 2050. And this is a big piece of the DOE plan, and it includes an industrial decarbonization roadmap. So really all around, we're looking at these plans focusing on a reduction of CO2 from businesses and industries in the United States. And these plans are not only influencing federal, state, and local laws, but they're also influencing private companies who will, benefit from these strategic is a big word here, strategic targeted regulations and federal assistance.
Yeah, so I agree with Jennifer in that, regulation is definitely something that's currently in development and we're tracking the big driver for sustainability. But what's really been at the forefront of sustainability for a long time is really the citizens. So environmental concern of the current generation, which is millennials and Gen Z, has had a significant influence over what businesses are doing. We have voting power and we vote with our dollar, and corporations are really listening to what consumers are asking.
Absolutely. So this pressure, like Gabby is talking about, the pressure from stakeholders, investors, customers, and suppliers, it kind of ties into ESG, environmental social governance, and that's it's a non-financial performance indicator that's used to rate companies based on ESG policies. And there's a lot of evidence out there that companies that adopt these policies are viewed as being more likely to succeed long term. There's actually a survey in 2021, Consumer Intelligence Series survey on ESG, and it showed that 76% of consumers say they will actually stop buying from companies who mistreat their employees, the environment, or the community where they operate. And then, of course, employee engagement and retention, we just went through, we're probably still going through the Great Resignation. So this increased focus on valuing workplaces, employees have an increased focus on evaluating workplaces that prioritize sustainability. And, companies that demonstrate this commitment to the environment and social responsibility will really be the ones that will attract and retain top talent.
Another thing that's driving corporations towards sustainability is also just looking for ways to help mitigate risk associated with resource scarcity, climate-related disruptions that we're currently seeing, a more frequent of severe weather patterns, flooding, hurricanes. And all of these things are also drivers for innovation and technology.
It's really interesting to see that regulation isn't kind of the only factor that drives sustainability in these corporations. So then what would you say are some good examples of sustainability projects?
Examples of projects that are directly driven by sustainability are goals, such as net zero goals or zero waste, waste to energy projects. And then we have seen a good increase in them here at Braun Intertech. Maybe Jennifer can expand on some of those examples.
Yeah, like Gabby said, it's kind of interesting to see the increase. We've seen requests for new waste to energy plans and new plans and options for existing companies to maybe change the way they're getting their energy. One of the things that we're seeing in the U.S. as a whole is an increase in interest in these. It's called a green methanol or green hydrogen plant, and the green is it's powered by, renewable energy versus coal, for example. Another one that we've personally seen at Braun is a request for a plant that it's an entrepreneur who's interested in building a plastic to energy plant. So there's an existing, I believe it's a plastic recycling company, and they're looking to construct a facility next to that to take a lot of that plastic and instead of just recycling it, turn it into alternative fuel sources that will then go back into industries to fuel them.
It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for new technology and innovation with projects like these. Could anyone kind of dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So one of the really interesting things that we're seeing right now is with anaerobic digesters. We already work with a company that works with dairy farms to install digesters, and the digesters will take the manure, it's usually waste or it's a lower quality fertilizer, and they process it through the digester, turn it into renewable natural gas or a more high quality fertilizer that can either be used at the dairy or turned around and sold. So one of the innovative uses we're starting to see for digesters is for food waste. So food waste, the EPA estimates that 20 to 30% of food produced in the US ends up as waste, which then goes to a landfill or incinerator and is processed and turns into methane. Methane gas is 28 times more warming than CO2. So we are seeing this innovation taking an existing technology, the digesters, and using it to help fix a newer, quote unquote, newer environmental problem by processing food waste into renewable natural gas and fertilizer. In fact, we're seeing states like Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York City are starting to implement laws that require restaurants with a certain amount of patronage to divert a certain percentage of their food waste to something like a digester. So it's a really interesting opportunity to turn a problem into a renewable fuel solution.
So how can Braun Intertech specifically help these companies navigate the future of sustainability regulations and projects like these?
So it's nice we actually can go beyond traditional consulting, for example, supporting wind farms, solar farms with permitting and natural resources work, by really helping companies to navigate regulations for these newer, more innovative technologies. Taking the digesters, for example, we're that same company we've been working with is proposing to install a digester in Virginia. And the permitting process is newer there. So we have actually been able to work with the regulators to set a precedent for this air permit in Virginia to permit a digester for food waste and manure that they will now use as an example for future projects in the state like that. So it's just a really nice way that we can help clients by teaching and guiding the regulators while assisting clients and helping both the states and the companies move forward. And another opportunity that we're seeing in multiple areas is grant and funding opportunities. So going back to the EPA strategic plan, the EPA has provided millions of dollars worth of grant opportunities. One in particular is for environmental product declarations or EPDs. And those, it's essentially they call it like a nutrition label for a building material. And the point of the EPA grant is to help companies, concrete companies concrete companies specifically, develop more EPDs for the facilities, because we're seeing that based on, again, federal regulations and some state regulations, agencies who are letting projects are requiring each building material to have an EPD with a certain global warming potential to show a reduction in greenhouse gases for this construction project. So we have kind of two ways of participating here. We are helping people, or we have helped people write the grants and hopefully get the grants. And then after the grants are awarded, we have the opportunity to then assist companies with doing things like developing EPDs.
Expanding on what Jennifer said, we not only have assisted clients with environmental agencies, but we've also assisted them recently with Department of Energy, so it can also expand onto federal agencies. We just had a project where we helped a client complete an application for a tax credit, where we completed the greenhouse gas calculations and helped them determine what their carbon footprint was. And based on those numbers, they could get up to 30% back on their investment.
That's interesting. And then just to expand on that, obviously we have grant opportunities, navigating regulations, but just greenhouse gas calculations in general. We're compliance people. We do a lot of air calculations. So greenhouse gas calculations tie right into that. There are going to be more and more regulations requiring baselines for companies, both for fleets, for operations, et cetera. So that's one of the big areas where we're seeing requests, and where we can help companies focus on a more sustainability related calculation or report.
Thank you guys for joining me and answering all those questions. I'm sure that was a lot of information for me, so I really appreciate that. And if anyone wants to find out anything more, they can fill out a form to discuss more with a consultant directly.